Don't forget to go pause. Don't forget to go pause. Next stream.
Good evening. My name is Gary Darnell. I'm a Salem Hearings official. For the record, it's 5:30 on Wednesday, February 11th, 2026. This evening, we have one hearing on our docket. This hearing concerns an application for a conditional use permit for a short-term rental on property zoned single-family residential at 2494 Crestfoot Brook Drive, Northwest. The applicant is Mr. Joseph Jordan. And this is case number CU 26-01. The approval criteria in this matter can be found in section 240.005, capital D, sub 1 through sub 3 of the Salem Revised Code. And staff will go into greater detail in terms of presenting these criteria and the evidence that has been submitted in support. Before we get into the actual hearing, I'd like to describe the rules and procedures that we follow. These hearings can be characterized as being both subject to due process and de novo. By due process, that means there's certain rights that attach to the hearing: the right to testify, the right to notice of the hearing, the right to an impartial decision maker, and the right to a written decision based on findings of fact and conclusions of law. By de novo, that means new evidence can be presented to the hearings official, or if my decision is appealed to the Salem Planning Commission, you can present new evidence and raise new criteria if you think they're applicable before the Planning Commission. The rules of evidence that you'll find in circuit court don't apply to these proceedings. Basically, evidence that I find admissible is that type of evidence that would be commonly relied upon by a reasonably prudent person conducting their serious daily affairs. Evidence that's relevant, immaterial, argumentative, won't be accepted by the hearings official. Testimony this evening needs to be directed towards the approval criteria. And again, the staff will elucidate the approval criteria. It's important to raise any procedural or substantive issue at these hearings, or again, if appealed to the Planning Commission for the Planning Commission. Failure to do so will preclude your ability to raise those issues on appeal before the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals. Failure by the applicant to raise a constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or their designee to respond to the issue will preclude an action for damages in circuit court. The burden of proof for each fact or position that's raised lies with that party asserting that fact or position. The ultimate burden lies with the applicant to show by a preponderance of the evidence that all approval criteria have been met. And the record in this matter includes the application, supplemental support materials submitted by the applicant, the staff report, written and oral testimony that we received today at this hearing. If you want to make sure that an item that you believe should be entered into the record as evidence, be sure and make a point to present it to the hearings official, and that will ensure that it is in the record. By statute, you have the right to request that the record be held open an additional 7 days. You don't have to give a reason for making that request. It merely needs to be raised before the end until the hearing closes this evening. If there is a request and then the record is held open, New evidence introduced during that time will be subject to examination, comment, review by all parties. Ultimately, the applicant has the final ability to present summary or rebuttal testimony. You also have the right to request a continuance of the hearing, and that means this hearing is extended to a future date. That request is discretionary with the hearings official. You merely need to demonstrate that merely holding the record open a certain period of time isn't adequate to address your concerns or your issues. We ask that everyone who testifies do so from the dais to my left, your right. First, please give your name for the record in case the transcript has to be made of the testimony. In terms of the hearing procedure, we'll begin with the staff report. Following the staff report, there'll be an opportunity for the applicant to testify in support of the application. Following that testimony, there'll be an opportunity for others in the audience to testify in support of the application. At the conclusion of that testimony, if any, there'll be an opportunity for representatives of the neighborhood associations that are applicable. Following that, be testimony from those who would rather not be identified as being pro or con, but have questions or issues that they would like to raise. And then finally, there'll be an opportunity for those who wish to testify in opposition. At the end of all that, I'll turn to staff and see if staff wishes to address any of the questions or issues that have been raised. And then finally, again, there'll be an opportunity for the applicant to present a summary or rebuttal of any testimony against the application. People who have standing, that is those who have submitted evidence either by letter or in person, can appeal my decision to the Salem Planning Commission. You have to file that appeal within 15 days of the date of notice of my written decision is mailed. The appeal before the Planning Commission is de novo. Again, that means you're free to raise new issues, present new evidence before the Planning Commission. As I indicated, one of the two process rights to these hearings is the right to an impartial decision maker. So in that regard, I'll indicate that I had no action or potential conflicts of interest, which I'm aware, and I've had no ex-parte contacts. A conflict of interest is where my decision will financially benefit myself, a family member, or a business that I'm associated with, or my decision would prevent a financial detriment to myself, a family member, or a business that I'm associated with. Ex-parte contacts are where the decision maker receives communications that go to the substance of the application in this case, and it occurs outside this public venue. In those situations, the decision maker needs to identify the communication and indicate whether it's whether they continue to be impartial. So at this time, I will ask if anybody wishes to challenge the impartiality of myself or the jurisdiction of the hearings official here this minute. Hearing no challenges, I'd like to ask for the staff report, please. Ms. Pedersen.
This one? Yep.
Yeah, sure. All right, with that, good evening, I'm Abigail Peterson and I'm here, for the conditional use permit, for the short-term rental at 2494 Crestbook Drive Northwest. And I request that this presentation, staff report, all comments received be submitted into the record.
So accepted.
At the request of Steve Anderson of the West Salem Neighborhood Association, I also request that the decision for the conditional use 2406 also be added to the public record.
It's 2506.
Did I say 2506? Oh, 2506, sorry. Okay, the request is for a conditional use permit for a short-term rental with an existing short-term dwelling. Here on the map shows the location of the property in question. There's an aerial view with the streets highlighted. The zoning of the property is RS, or single family residential. The development, the existing development is a 2,000 square foot, 4-bedroom, 2-story home with an existing 2-car garage, and there's no exterior changes proposed to the structure. The conditional use approval criteria is that the proposed use is allowed as a conditional use within the zoning of the property, which short-term rentals are permitted as a conditional use. The second criteria is that all reasonably likely adverse impacts of the use on the immediate neighborhood can be minimized through the imposition of conditions, which there are conditions requested, which staff believes will minimize the minimize the impact on the neighborhood. And the last one is the proposed use will be reasonably compatible with minimal impact on livability or appropriate development of the surrounding property. Short-term rental licenses are required to meet licensing standards upon licensing and renewal. Licenses are required to have a local representative that is sent to the neighborhood association upon licensing and renewal, and it is also publicly available information on the city's website. The conditions that are placed on the conditional use permit apply to all operators as well as licensing requirements. The recommended conditions of approval mimic the requirements for accessory short-term rentals found in SRC 700, which would not require a conditional use to operate in the RS zone. The conditions are the maximum number of guests in short-term rental not exceeding 8 persons, which is 2 per bedroom, not including children. The second condition is that there may only be 1 group of guests at any given time. Limited the use to lodging, not including events, and quiet hours between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. There's also a requirement for bicycle parking, which is a requirement of the parking section of our code. For the testimony that was provided, there was no comments provided from public agencies or comments from the public. The neighborhood association did provide 1 comment that requested 2 conditions be placed upon the conditional use permit. The first one was the requirement that the conditional use terminate upon sale or lease of the property. The code section 300.820A2 states that the review authority shall not impose any permanent conditions which would limit the use of the subject property to one particular owner, tenant, or business, which the legal staff of Salem believes that this makes this condition not able to be enforced by city staff. The second condition is the requirement that the conditional use be recorded with the deed. The conditional use permit already runs with the land and is on record with the city of Salem. And staff cannot meaningfully enforce this requirement, so staff does not recommend this condition. In conclusion, staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit with the recommendations, with the recommended conditions of approval outlined in the staff report.
We're having a technical difficulty. Can you do a break in between so we can set up a new Zoom and?
Sure. Let's take a 5-minute break.
Yeah. And so if you're watching on the stream, we're gonna start a new stream. And that'll pop up. So we're gonna just close this stream and start a new.
We will begin with, I have a few questions.
So just, yeah, close yours and then. Here, let's switch seats. Yeah.